Bien, bonjour à tous, j'espère que tout se passe bien pour vous. Bienvenue dans ce premier webinaire de Curare Noritake. Eh bien, pour commencer, je me présente. Je suis le docteur Victorien Viong, le référent scientifique de Curare Noritake France, qui est reconnu comme société japonaise spécialisée dans le domaine de l'adhésion et du collage, avec le panavia et le clear-fil. Curare Noritake est également spécialisée dans la zircone multi-couche, qu'elle a été la première à avoir inventé il y a près de 7 ans. La zircone katana que nous concevons et que nous produisons de A à Z suit un processus de contrôle drastique à chaque étape de la fabrication, ce qui donne une pureté et une qualité unique à nos matériaux. Eh bien, aujourd'hui, nous sommes très heureux de vous accueillir dans ce premier webinaire de Curare Noritake avec Daniele Rondoni, qui nous parlera de son expérience avec notre zircone multi-couche katana. Donc, Daniele Rondoni va nous présenter aujourd'hui les solutions élégantes en dentisterie. Daniele Rondoni est un prothésiste dentaire internationalement reconnu. Il a de multiples expériences en tant que conférencier depuis plus de 20 ans dans des symposiums internationaux. Il est également instructeur international pour Curare Noritake et collabore activement au développement de nos matériaux avec les restaurations esthétiques. Il a enfin travaillé en tant qu'enseignant à l'école des prothésistes dentaires de Savona et a publié dans de nombreuses universités et dans des revues très prestigieuses. Donc c'est pour moi un très grand plaisir de faire ce webinaire avec vous et avec Daniele Rondoni.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everybody. For me, a big honor to be here sharing with you my experience. Moreover, I want to thank the Curare Noritake for this opportunity and to have the possibility to show my technique and my procedure using the interesting product Curare Noritake. So I want to introduce my focus of a lecture today is the first, the evolution of zirconia. This kind of material, katana, zirconia, represent an interesting option today in dentistry and most of all for us as a dental technician in our lab. The second point, it will be the new porcelain. The porcelain dedicated to exploit correctly the property aesthetic and mechanical of the new multi-layered zirconia. I will mention the special powder new for the porcelain and special ceramic fluid to use correctly the multi-layered zirconia. And the end, it will be important for me to have the time to show the micro-layer technique, the new approach that today we can use in lab to combine perfectly the porcelain, multi-layered zirconia, and the request of our patient. And speaking about the request of our patient, all we know the aesthetic for the patient represent an important request, an important dream, and it's interesting to consider that for us it's important to have for them a different strategy according to the patient request. The first quest for me can create the condition is the level of the needs of our patient, considering the situation is very important. Consider this aspect. The second point, it will be considered influence the level of the difficulty for us as a dental technician and also for the dentist, because according to the treatment we can decide a different strategy and maybe sometime possible to change also the different material. And we show later, I can show later the importance to have a material as a multi-layered zirconia as a versatile material. In the end, the level of the needs, level of difficulty represent the key to have the individual for our patient, because all patients need a special individualized option and treatment. Consider this aspect. As a dental technician, it's important that my dream, that my aim is to have in lab a versatile material. And I think that zirconia today represents a very important material because I can work in several options, in several different techniques. And how I already said, according to the level of the request, we can change the strategy adapting our material. And today, a company as a Curarai Norità can offer to us an interesting material, versatile, according to the different requests. In fact, now I want to introduce this kind of evolution because all we know the zirconia from many years ago, but recently we have an important evolution, the multi-layer zirconia. And katana from Noritake, Curarai Noritake, represent important phases for us. More or less 7 years ago, I have an opportunity to touch this material, to start to work this material, because before we thought that zirconia is a material ideal for framework because it was monocolor, whitish, but interesting for the framework. Today, consider the evolution of zirconia, and later I want to show you which kind of different zirconia I have available. We can think that zirconia represents a material interesting to emulate the natural enamel because have the very similar property. So speak about the first option that normally we have, the multi-layer technique that uses ceramic. All we know, the multi-layer zirconia, multi-layer technique on zirconia represent a traditional technique. Really important because all we know perfectly the technique of layer. Today we have available an interesting porcelain to manage correctly, to customize perfectly our layer. But today, why we can think in this direction? Why we can continue to use the multi-layer traditional? For example, for my opinion, depend of the level of the difficult as a definition, or better, depend of the level of the request of the state. For example, in this case is a clinical case, the one-to-one, where I to recover the single tooth. Maybe we can use all possibility, all material available to reproduce perfectly the correct aesthetic. In that case, for the single crown, maybe we can think of the zirconia high translucence monocolor. For example, in that case, I can use a katana HT, really interesting zirconia high strength, that is pre-colored, can influence basically the color of my restoration. And in combination with the ideal material like SDS, stain-based shade, I have to be careful about the ideal substructure in order to manage the initial basic case. This is a traditional procedure ideal for the high-level difficulty. Consider the traditional technique. In that we can see that one example of my technique multi-layer using the porcelain Noritake CZR, where we have interesting material as a dentin opaque or batches dentin. We can see the combination with the body dentin and enamel for to finish the top of the incisal. We can see some important effect to reproduce emulate the mamelon internally, and the aqua blue one, for example, to recreate the opalescent effect. And then for the traditional technique, usually I use a one bake to create a core. And after the internal stain technique with the internal stain from the technique of the master Aoshima, we can manage correctly the value and the chroma. And the end, with the second bake, I can finalize the first anatomy, the first morphology, using the luster LT0, aqua blue one for the opalescent, and ELT3 whitish material to recreate the proximal area, to recreate the contrast. And after that, really important for me, consider this kind of the property of the CZR ceramic. My favorite technique is to use the self-glaze, no glazure, only mechanical polish. And we can see the final solution, and it's interesting to consider the importance of the layer can finish my crown, the luster of polishing effect material, as a user material for the user material Noritake is really important to know this kind of material because it has not only the opalescent effect, but is interesting because it has various elements to reproduce the natural effect of the enamel, but is interested for the compactness, because the microparticle of this kind of the powder represent an important chance to recreate another important aspect for our restoration, the texture. Because as a dental technician, we know the importance to recreate and to customize perfectly the surface, copying perfectly the natural surface of the tooth for our patient. And then it's important for me mention some important protocol to use the diamond burn, and considering this diamond burn ideal to recreate a very important component as a vertical component, horizontal component. This is a texture. This phase, this moment that for us is very important to recreate perfectly all detail aesthetic. But it's important to respect the surface of the ceramic. For me, considering the experience with this kind of ceramic, it's important not use the glaze on surface. For us, for me, it's very useless. It's important to careful about the surface, to finalize the surface using the master coin in order to adapt according to the age of the surface of the my ceramic, in the end, to the self-glaze in the ovens without anything, and finalize with a mechanical polishing using the special pumice and past of the diamond pasta. I finalize and individualize the surface of my restoration. And this aspect is very important for the multi-layer technique, for most of all considering the case one-to-one. We can see before the bond, the cementation, after the cementation. We can see the final work using HT zirconia katana, monocolor, and CZR porcelain for the high-level solution. And high-level. So the second option really interesting today from experience, and to discover the importance to use a material monolayer. Material only one mask. For example, why? And which material today represent interesting to use a monolayer? This is zirconia. Zirconia represents an interesting material and this evolution to create the solution of full contour, but consider also special property. This interesting, this aspect, the design material, zirconia multi-layered, new generation, because all we know that our dream is to have a material can replicate the same mechanical property simultaneously of the optical property in the same layer, respecting the thickness, to optimize the thickness, to be more conservative, but maintaining the high level of the aesthetic and the result, final result. So this kind of material could be the new generation multi-layer, HT, high translucency, multi-layer zirconia, katana, high strength. This is an interesting material. We can see some picture underlined. The quality of the material can help me to reproduce easily the final color, considering also another aspect, the optical and mechanical aspect. So a multi-layer, the zirconia, we can find this kind of in the 4 level of the chroma, 4 level of the translucency, 1 level of the strength, and 1 level of the value. It's really interesting, this kind of zirconia, because for the first time, we can have a material, zirconia, dedicated for dentistry. And think that this ideal material is ideal to restore the enamel. Because this kind of material, under optical property, reproduce itself the main effect of the natural tooth. For example, we can see that the opacity of the enamel, the chromaticity of the dentist, and the translucency of this kind of the combination. So in the HT, high translucent, multi-layer zirconia katana, we can find a balance between the toughness of material and value, chroma, and translucency. This balance is very important for us as a dental technician, and it's very important for the dentist to have another interesting option for the inspections. So this kind of material offered to me, I have the first multi-color. We have available several colors respecting the shade division. But it's interesting because a multicolor, because in the same piece, after sintering, without color, without infiltration, without any color, already the interesting effect, according to the different effect, according to the thickness. We can notice some effect in incisal, some effect on the body. This is zirconia multi-layer without anything. This, I consider this kind of material important help for our work, because we can, for the first time, I have a very interesting base to work and to finalize correctly and easily my restoration. Consider another aspect. We can use the thickness, we reduce the thickness of our restoration. A really interesting aspect for dentistry, and most of all, consider the different level or different kind of preparation for the dentist. So the HTML is interesting material because it represents a perfect combination of the ideal for the strength, because of 1,200 megapascal, possible to use for the bridge, for the big restoration. But it's interesting to consider also according to the thickness, interesting translucency, and most of all, according to the chroma, we can have also now a very interesting chance according to the color of the patient. So one aspect is interesting, the refractive index of the natural tooth. All we know, the degree of the refractive index of the dent is a 1.45, and the enema a 1.62. The meaning is the refractive index of the enema is a more dense, is a more high value, and the denti, we can see, is a more translucent and surely more chromatic. It's very interesting to compare, for example, a cup of the multi-layer zirconia in combination with a natural tooth. It's very interesting to analyze the high value on the top, and we can consider this kind of zirconia is the zirconia without infiltration, without color, only after sintering. So for me, it's a very interesting base to start to work, and why not to think to use this kind of material as an element. Not only for the optical property, but also for the interesting other aspect. For example, because the zirconia multi-layer offered to me today to improve a lot the digital restorative workflow. Or we know the in-lab is interesting, important aspect and kind of work. So the digital workflow depends on the important step. For example, there is many steps can influence the degree and quality of our zirconia, and maybe should be interesting, maybe nextly in another webinar, more detail according to the different level and which is important tip and tricks to obtain the ideal final full contour without the big intervention in the lab, but only respecting the protocol. Yes, because there is many factors can influence my product, my zirconia multi-layer. Surely the morphology depends on the digital morphology, depends on my skill to manage the software, and it depends also the quality of the digital library regarding the shape of the tooth. Another aspect very important is the milling. It's important the tool to have a very important, very effective machine to mill in the zirconia, because it's really important to reproduce all detail in our restoration. But for my opinion, speaking about the multi-layer zirconia, is very important to have a protocol effective of the protocol of the zirconia sintering. This phase is a delicate phase because we have to respect the calibration, the decontamination of the oven, the temperature, and respecting the time, because according to the different treatment, we can change the appearance, the optical property, and also change the mechanical property. Maybe according to other bad sintering procedure, we have a bad and we can damage our zirconia. In the end, the accuracy handmade. All we know that during the digital work is fundamental the handmade work. It's not true thinking that digital workflow can substitute the manual work. It's important the handmade. And through the hand accuracy, we can increase our value. And with combination of the good selection of the material, the good protocol, the treatment of the material, and the end, the good refinishing, to be careful about detail, we can realize that the full contour zirconia really interesting with a high value. Considering that in that case, I only polish it with a mechanical and made the occlusion, and I use the stain in the groove, no color, anything. It's interesting to have the option to create the correction of the shade or the customize the color and aesthetic only peripherally. Usually, in my technique, to be careful to have a material, to use a special ceramic to manage it only peripherally. But in occlusion, in the functional area, I can exploit the zirconia free using only mechanical polish. Regarding this aspect, I want to mention one clinical evidence, one scientific evidence. Is always for me is important to combine the scientific evidence in combination with the clinical evidence. And from my experience, the polished monolithic zirconia represent a lower wear rate. And this aspect is very interesting to respect our antagonists, now our natural antagonists, because this material is a complex. The new zirconia katana multi-layer is totally compact. And this aspect is very important because for the reason, it's another reason to use the mono full contour solution. And it's interesting that for finalize the occlusion, I want to use the mechanical poly using the Zeta Sulfide diamond pasta with the gut brush easily. This procedure is very interesting because it's easy in the lab, but it's also easy in dental office. Just in case the dentist have to correct the occlusion, is enough polishing with the mechanical polishing without anything. Because we know that zirconia on the top maintain the high value and maintain the compactness. Really interesting to respect them our antagonists. So, speak about the new multi-layer zirconia. Today we are available, speak about also with the high translucence, high toughness multi-layer zirconia, several color. We can see we have several color according to the shade, Vita shade color. We can see my personal shade guide. I'm milling for all disc available, for all blanch available, the same shape of the Vita shape, in order to have the immediately perception, the real perception of the kind of the result of the zirconia after sintering, without anything. No infiltration, no staining external. So, speak about the cases because we can combine the clinical evidence in combination with the clinical scientific evidence. For example, today, in the multi-unit solution, for example, we can restore 6 elements for the single crown. Maybe normally I thought to use the zirconia coping and multi-layer technique to use porcelain. But today, consider that we have already a temporary as a prototype. And consider the evolution also the digital workflow in the lab. And most of all, consider also the possibility to have from the dental office the impression of the temporary as a prototype. Immediately, I can scan and put in my software the project and to recreate through the digital cutback design an internal design of our restoration. In that case, my goal is to recreate the anatomy, the internal anatomy of my tooth. I avoided the internal layer with the porcelain and left on the thickness dedicated for the ceramic, really thickness, but using managed perfectly the possibility and the possibility with the new zirconia. So we can see the thickness dedicated for the porcelain. We can see the part that anatomy, the morphology area that I left available for zirconia free. And now I transform this design in zirconia. And we can see after milling and after sintering the first step of the zirconia. A zirconia cutback, where I maintain zirconia free palatally and buccally. I left 0.8 thickness dedicated for 1 layer of the porcelain. The first step is to manage the substructure. In that case, I use the internalized stain in order to manage the polishing design, to increase the fluorescence using the full fluoro, increase the chroma and the pink shadow in the cervical area. This is my chromatic part for the first step, using the internalized stain. And the second step, it will be covering the vestibule with a new porcelain. I spoke before regarding the new porcelain, and considering the different strategy with the layering ceramic, it's interesting now to have a new luster, more intense, ideal to layer directly on zirconia, where normally the micro layer technique I have available very thin thickness. So this kind of material is more intense. For example, we can see a special royal blue, interesting the super luster. This kind of material born to finalize better is the technique micro layer on zirconia, but is interesting also use this kind of material in the traditional layer. And another information that we have this 5 luster, not only for the CZR, for the zirconia, but we can find this kind of luster also for the X3, for the porcelain for metal. By the way, continue the letter. Now I want to apply this about the micro layer technique, because in only one bake, I can finalize the layer using a recipe sample where I use the one LT coral used cervically, one mix LT1 and super luster for the body, and luster royal blue for the opalescence effect, and 8 LT3 to create a contrast area proximal. And in the incisal to recreate the halo, I use the opacious body. So one bake, second step, and finishing. Because after baking, I can continue directly for the finishing. In this kind of finishing is interesting because I can finalize the aesthetic, I can finalize the texture, I can to reproduce the vertical component. All we know, ceramic, porcelain is the best material to reproduce the natural texture. But the step 3 is the polishing and drying. This step 3 is the self-glaze dedicated for the ceramic. No glaze, no staining, no supercolor, only refinishing. And that for the zirconia, because we have the zirconia palatal free, only mechanical polishing using the zeta pair diamond path. Layer the glass crown, but exploiting perfectly the power of the new multi-layer katana zirconia in combination with the new luster. So it's interesting, this kind of zirconia, this is the crown, but it's interesting also mention another important aspect. I am dental technician. I know managing in the mouth the adhesion, but it's important as a dental technician to know the possibility of the adhesion, the new generation adhesion on zirconia. Is it possible today because we have available an important ceramic primer where we can find the 10 MDP molecular, an important primer to connect the phases organic in combination with the inorganic material. This kind of material is interesting because it's possible to combine with the Panavia V5 or Panavia SA for the cementation. And as a dental technician, it's important to know how to prepare the surface, the structure, the interface to favor this kind of the new adhesion. And it's very important to mention the importance of the sandblast, because before to deliver our crown, we have to treat the aluminum oxide 50 micron with a 1 bar alpha 2 bar in order to recreate the surface idea to absorb the ceramic primer and to finalize the cementation, the adhesion cementation using Panavia. So we can see during the sandblast, I protect the margin with the wax in order to not damage this important part of the crown. And we can see the crown after the cementation, where the dentist use the Panavia to bond this kind of crown hybrid solution, cutback, zirconia palatal free, and layering with the porcelain vesicle. So regarding the importance of to use the zirconia palatally free or use the zirconia for the full contour in occlusion free without color, is interesting this kind of investigation that I made together at the University. I published this kind of this publishing 2 years ago. We compare several materials, but it's interesting for me because I want to show you the last date where katana zirconia HTML polished, no glaze, without ceramic, is a more compactness material in relation of the gold alloy or the common popular composite. It's interesting data because represent an interesting vision of new vision of the material as a zirconia. It's a very important focus that I will speak about the katana zirconia multi-layer, new generation of katana. This kind of material represents a more compactness material. If the dentist requests this kind of material for the easy restoration to respect the antagonist, surely katana represented the best. And for this reason, why use, for example, the multi-unit also for anterior, using the zirconia palatal free. Respecting this kind of the evolution, respecting the very important performance with the multi-layer, Noritake introduced another interesting evolution of zirconia, the cubic zirconia. The Noritake have an important technology where it's possible to combine the cubic zirconia or transform in tetragonal zirconia in cubic. All we know, the cubic zirconia represents the main translucent zirconia. We have two options. One option is cubic zirconia of the translucent, and second is a super translucent 750 megapascal, ideal for the anterior tooth or most of all for the posterior tooth single crown. In case of the cubic super translucent, we can use also the little, use this kind of zirconia for the little bridge and for maximum 3 elements. We can see that my shade guide, for example, is interesting because we have, for example, my selection of the shade guide, different ST and UT. They are really interested in this kind of zirconia because I can use not only for posterior single crown, but for example, UT is possible to use also for the single anterior element or for the lamins as well. Speak about the katana family. Today, we have to consider I have a big capacity to have a versatile material because we offer several toughness, several level of the translucency. And regarding translucency, I want to remind you the importance of the sintered treatment. But today we have HTML 1200 megapascal, ideal for the big restoration. STML medium toughness 750, the ideal for the single posterior crown and little bridge, or anterior UTML 550 megapascal. This is ideal for the anterior tooth. So we can see the quantity of the shade possible respects the different level of the shade, different level of the toughness. So for us as a dental technician is a big opportunity. It's really interesting because we have to consider today when to have a parameter, a criteria to select which kind of zirconia you have to choose according to the level of the request. And then now speak about the new porcelain. It's interesting to introduce the new generation porcelain. Interesting fluid ceramic to apply the 3D ultra micro layer technique. Really interesting because it's possible to obtain a 3D effect in very thin, consider 0.20 micron, 30 micron. This ideal material, Noritake, FC Pastain. This kind of material is a ceramic already prepped with a several colors, but most of all high level of fluorescence. According to the color, we can find different fluorescence. Speaking of the FC Pastain, this is an interesting kit. We can find several material according to our need. For example, we have a 4-element dedicated to reproduce the enamel. The clearly is a value in combination with the floor represented as the best material to create a very thin condition a 3D effect. 4 color to manage the shade, respecting the Vita shade language. 3 color to manage the cervical, to intensify the cervical area. But the set important is the set for incisional effect, where we can find the grayish blue and white and dark gray to recreate the most important effect in the incisional area. And then one set dedicated for body effect, where I want to mention the importance of the, for example, air brown for the groove. But it's interesting, for example, for me, the green one and the green two, to reproduce the mamelon. Consider this green cancel the yellow effect of the zirconia. In the end, the pink tissue set, salmon pink, pink, red in combination with the blue and white and reddish brown represent for us an interesting micro kit to create the zero cutback tissue area. Interesting, for example, for the apply the ultra micro layer in the full contour Toronto bridge. So this kind of material is a ceramic, is not super color. Nothing this kind of material has a stain, not possible to use in the same way, is not painted, it represents a material to ultra micro layer. In reality, we use the brush and to push and to move the material, to put the material delicate layer, because this is the ultra micro layer. So, for example, consider this kind of material. Is it possible to fix a very easy recipe where I use, for example, the fluoro on the body to recreate the fluorescence, clear glias in one layer to recreate the 3D effect of enamel, grayish blue to recreate the opalescence effect, and green 2 to recreate the incisional effect as a mamelon. In the end, value to recreate the proximal area, the whitish in the proximal, the contrast. So this is a zero cutback Katana S18 ml A2, where we can see the 3D effect in zero cut, 20 micron effect in thickness. No powder, no staining, no infiltration. It's really interesting, this kind of material, FCPA stain, to use and to exploit in the best way the full contour, use the new generation multi-layer zircon. So this kind of material is really interesting because I have to layer. In reality, it's not varnish, it's not super color, it's a liquid fluid ceramic. We cannot that I apply as a ceramic. I can work under control. It's really interesting because it's possible to maintain also the texture, because respect the surface of the texture. And we can see from step, we can see the manage of the ceramic and work on surface of the common ceramic liquid. We can see in this moment, I put the value in order to emphasize the contrast of the proximal area. So now we can go on to the conclusion. Consider the new generation zirconia. Now we can speak about the new zirconia biodesign because consider the several levels of the mechanical property. Considering the several elements possible according to the shade base, the shade color. Considering the multi-layer effect that we have with zirconia, now we can think in different way when I have to work digital or create the design of my framework. Because for the multi-layer technique, I think the zirconia ideal for the copying without the spatial biodesign. But consider multi-layer zirconia, now we can think the multi-layer zirconia as a dentin. For example, or according to the level, we can think that I create the internal design already done of the dentin, using only laser to cover it totally. Or thinking with the cutback, where, for example, according to the level, the request, I use the cutback vestibulary, maintaining the palatal zirconia free. On the end, think of zirconia as an enamel in order to recreate only the enamel, zero cutback, without any porcelain over this structure. So, for example, this decision depends on the level. So the high difficulty for the technician, we have a high difficulty to reproduce the color. Maybe in that case, I prefer to use the porcelain, for example, CCR, consider the power or the versatility and the several elements available to recreate the external layer to reproduce the important effect using the porcelain, 3D effect using porcelain. The level is medium, the difficult medium, with meaning several elements. For example, I want to maintain the morphology from the project. In that case, and most of all, for example, the thickness available is not enough. Palatally, I prefer to use the zirconia free, and I use the ceramic only vestibulary. And it's made difficult because, for example, for the symmetric aesthetic, when I have 6 elements, for example, I can project digitally the anatomy and cover it with the porcelain only vestibulary. In the end, low difficulty for dentists, for technicians. The color is not complex. The element is a multi-unit. The symmetric colors are easily reproduced. Why not think to use the power of the optical property of the multi-layer zirconia in combination with the zero cutback and using only FC pastel? So I want to show you 3 experiences according to the different options. The option 1, high difficulty because the 2 element, anterior element, the request for the patient is a high level request for the patient. 2 anterior tooth, 1 element is on implant, 1 element is a natural abutment. This kind of difference could be another difficulty for us. In that case, I prefer to use a zirconia as a dentin. And so I create a biodesign easily reproduce the internal dentin core. Because the first step, the first bake, it will be manage the substructure using the fluoro internal stain and some pink to emphasize the cervical shadow. So I use fluoro to transform the zirconia non-fluorescent in zirconia fluorescent. Or we know the zirconia basically is not fluorescent. But using the internal stain fluoro, I can have internally fluorescence. Another thing, all we know, the fluorescence in the nature is indented. And this option, this possibility to use a material as a fluoro directly on zirconia is interesting to have increasing the mimetism and our effect. Second step is a layer first back using only 3 kind of luster. LT0 for the core, CCV2 cervical gray to create already the shade more chromatic cervically, and aqua blue one to create proximal opalescence effect. Step 2, bake to 1. Third step is to recreate the internal effect. In that case, high difficulty, there is some important internal effect, like a crack. In that case, I can use the internal lens technique, traditional technique from the master Aoshima, directly on LT0 after bake to recreate the internal effect of the crack. So we know that when I use the internal stain is an internal painting. I can bake it directly on luster, and just in case I can create the HD effect as a crack or manage the value and increase the chroma. For example, in that case, I want to increase also the chroma using A+, and I want to reduce the value using Incisor blue proximal. Now we can finish for the step 4. Step 4 is a second bake, and so only 1 layer of the luster in order to create and finalize the morphology, externally morphology. In that case, I use the body LT0, ELT3 for the contrast, aqua blue one internally proximal to create the opalescent shadow, and the halo using opacious body A1. And now we can see the final cases of this kind of micro layer technique using zirconia as a core and finalize only with the lasted material, lasted porcelain, and internal slide state technique. Option 2, medium difficulty. In that case, the patient wants to change it totally this aesthetic. This aesthetic is a fast temporary from the dentist, is a multi-unit element, is a 6 single crown. The patient wants to have the white effect, the white, to recover the white edge. So in this case, we can consider medium difficulty because it's enough to correct the aesthetic digitally in order to respect the prototype. And when they have this prototype approved from the dentist, the patient, is enough to create it through the library. For example, I have my personal library where according to the shape, I have also the different cutback according to the age. For example, according to the age, the autonomy we can change young, adult, and old. So I can do directly using the katana zirconia and using the digital design directly the cutback and recreate easily the anatomy. In that case, we speak about the new design because palatally it will be zirconia, vestibular it will be zirconia covered with porcelain. We can see in that case the zirconia just sintering, prepared for the micro layer cutback. We can notice the effect, the internal design is a 3D internal design, and using only one layer of the, and using only 3 lustre. In that case, I use aqua blue 1, LT1, ELT3, and we can see an important step, the drop technique to covering only vessels. We have to consider the importance of the humidity. This is the reason of the drop technique, because consider the I2 layer in very thin condition, more or less 0.5, 0.8, to maintain the humidity in very thin layer is important. Drop technique could be a help for us. And we can see the final result with the palatal full zirconia, cutback vestibular, we use the micro layer technique, where vestibular we have ceramic and palatally full zirconia, completely mechanical polishing. And we can see the 6 elements after the cementation to white effect for the patient. The third option, low difficulty. Why low difficulty? Low difficulty because, first, because the element is a 4. And we can see the patient when they remove 4 crown, we can see, we have to renovate a build up and to restore the abutment using, for example, the composite fiberglass. And we can notice some difficulty where is important the masking. Is important the masking, maybe is important to exploit the opacity of the zirconia. So now the problem is to combine the morphology, the aesthetic, and masking as well. The zirconia, for my opinion, represent a dense material ideally. It can ideal to cover and mask this kind of problem. But it's interesting to use a multi-layer because the multi-layer ultra translucent can solve another problem, can solve the problem of the ideal balance for aesthetic. And then, for example, 4 elements. Consider the level of preparation. The level of preparation is a vertical preparation. The level of thickness allow me to use an interesting option. Consider that I have already a project approved for the dentist. This is a digital project from the dentist, from the prototype that he have through his temporary. Why not to think in zero cutback biodesign? Considering most of all palatally, we have 2 problems. The first is to have a thickness idea for the palatal area. Another aspect is very important in this kind of preparation for the margin, where it's important to aspect. To use zirconia, why have the strength? This is very interesting, this is flexural strength, this rigidity is very important. But consider this kind of the solution, it will be important to respect also the adhesion, the new generation procedure of the adhesion using, for example, panaving, also for the vestibule area. In that case, we can finish the case with the full zirconia for the area. And we can see some detail about the anterior full contour could be zirconia. We can see just the bone, sintering after milling. In that case, I use the optimale A1. Normally, if the shade final around the A2, we prefer 1 point or 2 points less in order to have the chromaticity, because multi-layer is a chromatic, but maintain the high value. This for this the reason why I use A1, because to manage, to correct, to customize our color, we had to work on in a very thickener condition. And then, before to finalize, it's important to manage with the handmade the texture. We can see the project of the vertical component and the texture in order to reproduce the texture and effect important for our reflection. In the end, now we have to create the 3D ultra micro layer. 3D effect considering the new fluid ceramic FC pastain, because this kind of material allow me to recreate the effect in a very thinner condition. So we can see the color map. For this case, is easy because it's 4, it's asymmetric, it's not 1-to-1. It's enough to copy this effect for each tooth. And we can see my color map where I use, for example, A+ to recreate the chromaticity. I use the cervical 2 in combination with the mamelon 2 to recreate the mamelon. I use value for the proximal area, grayish blue to recreate the opalation, and the end the clear glaze as an enamel to recreate the enamel effect. And so we can see the foreground finished, painted, or better, ultra micro layer with the FC pastain, and palatally only staining the little groove and mechanical polish without anything. So after the cementation with the panavia, we can see the final cases and the 4 element in a 0 cutback multi-layer zirconia, ultra translucent multi-layer zirconia, and ultra micro layer with FC pastel. We can see some detail. Palatally, for example, interesting that in this area we can exploit the compactness of zirconia using full zirconia without any. Some detail regarding the traditional picture or under polarized picture. We can see some painted side effect. We can possible to notice the value. We can possible some demineralization, the chromaticity sign, which is all effect. Manning standard light is all effect represent an interesting mimetism. So now the doubt, the conclusion could be to use the cutback or 0 cutback. We can have other 2 options because historically, for me as a dental technician, the multi-layer technique with the porcelain on metal or on zirconia represent the standard work. Today, we have another interesting possibility, thinking different way. Micro layer for the cutback solution in zirconia or 0 cutback always in zirconia. Depend of the level. With the high difficulty, I had to immediately consider the possibility to create a thickness idea for the luster digitally. So I had to think at 0.8, 0.3 cutback to create the thickness of the luster. This is idea for micro layer technique and to using the luster porcelain. The level of difficulty medium, multi-unit element, full arch, for example, full contour, Toronto Bridge. Why not to think in the major difficulty preparing the cutback 0.3, 0 cutback. Idea for 3D ultra micro layer using FC pastain. And then low difficulty, multi-unit, morphology is the main request. No big problem with the color, why not to exploit the zirconia multi-layer in combination with a 0 cutback digitally, ultra micro layer, always with the only 1 layer with the FC pastain. So I want to conclude with the two messages. The first is a multi-layer regarding the multi-layer zirconia. For me, multi-layer zirconia katana represent a need today. The first, because for its optical and mechanical property, emulate almost the natural enema. The second, for its versatility, because I can use the multi-layer zirconia for the big restoration, small restoration, for aesthetic restoration, in occlusion for the ideal relation with the natural antagonist. And the end is interest for the companies, because offer to me easy polishing, easy treatment, but interesting for also disaster also for the dentist. Micro layer technique. This is an option today for me in lab because easily respect the initial project, because I maintain 3/4 of the project that already I preview of the patient, because I dedicate the portion only vascular. The second, because this technique offers to me the preservation of the natural antagonist, because I can use zirconia-free palatally and use ceramic vestibulary. In the end, the micro-layer technique, ultra-micro-layer or micro-layer technique represent an effective technique for effective digital solution. For lab, where normally use the CAD/CAM, but today is interesting also for the dentist that more and more can work with a digital scan, and through this kind of digital work, we can thinking, and maybe next webinar we can show this option, we can think it to work without model, but only thinking digitally. I want to thank for your attention. Merci pour votre attention. Now I want to pass the word of Victorien to continue with our questions. Thank you very much.
Daniele.
Sorry.
Thank you for your very nice presentation. It was very, very good. And I think we had a lot of information. So I will look for all the questions.
Thank you. Yes, I'm ready.
Yes, and just let me check all the questions.
Yeah.
Je vais bien sûr traduire pour l'ensemble. Donc j'espère que vous avez apprécié cette présentation qui était vraiment très, très dense, mais avec énormément d'informations. Pour l'instant, la première question, c'est quel type de zircone utilise-t-il le plus fréquemment? Daniele, which kind of zirconia do you use the most frequently? You can share also your screen if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Now this moment is mentioning is visible. So about the question. So my favorite zirconia is surely is a multi-layer today, but that we know that we have 3 different kinds of zirconia. And my favorite is think about the strengths, because regarding the strengths, always I prefer to use the HTML because it can guarantee this performance and the strength. But to be honest, considering the perfect balance between the aesthetic and the strength, today the HTML, consider the variable shade available, is my favorite, as often I can use this kind of zirconia HTML also for the little bridge, not only for
Okay. Thank you. Donc, en fait, Daniel préfère utiliser en termes de résistance la HTML, mais en termes de balance et d'équilibre global, il préfère la HTML qu'il utilise la plus souvent et la plus polyvalente, selon lui. Thank you, Daniele. Another question. How do you, in French, at the beginning? Yes. Comment gère-t-il la translucidité de l'UTML sur des préparations teintées et foncées? So, how do you manage the translucency of UTML on tinted dark preparations tooth? Do you use UTML or something, HTML, for example?
Yes, this is a really interesting question. For example, this is another reason, for example, that HTML is ideal for strength. But considering that the HTML is a more dense zirconia available, when I need to screen the dark abutment, I prefer to solve the case with a micro layer technique with cutback, but using HTML, because HTML guaranteed to me to block the dark.
Ok, I understand. Donc, dans ces cas teintés, il préfère utiliser de la HTML pour totalement recouvrir la préparation sombre et ensuite faire de la microstratification par-dessus. Voilà. Donc, HTML microstratifié. Another question. So, in French at first. Avant saturisation de la zircone monolithique, fait-il des retouches pour créer des effets et puis avec quelle fraise? So, before sintering the zirconia, do you have specific burrs to create your effects? How do you work the surface, the texture before sintering?
Yes, this is a very important aspect because today we don't have the time to speak all workflow important and made to finalize the zirconia. But before the sintering, I practice to recreate the detailed morphology, the texture and surface individual using the burn with diamond burn. But before to continue, it's important to clean the surface using the master cone. I finalize the surface as a ceramic using the master cone directly on the cone.
Ok. Donc, en fait, il utilise le cône de polissage vraiment avant, le Meister Cone que vous avez vu dans la présentation, d'ailleurs qui est présent dans la gamme de Noritake. Et puis, ensuite, il polit avec de la pâte diamantée. Donc, il a différentes procédures qu'il pourrait détailler dans une vidéo totalement, que nous sommes d'ailleurs en train de préparer. Mais c'est un peu compliqué de tout décrire dans ce cadre. So, thank you, Daniele. Another question about the drop technique. So, dans sa présentation, donc on a vu qu'il a utilisé les lusters sur la microstratification avec la drop technique. Qu'est-ce que cela représente pour lui comme avantage? So, what is the drop technique for you and what are the advantages?
But where to spend some forward regarding the luster technique with the micro layer. Is it different to lay the luster when in traditional build-up using ceramic? Ceramic on ceramic with a big thickness to transfer the humidity. But when we work directly on zirconia, in a very thin thickness available, I worry to lose the humidity. And so for me, it's important to put a little portion in order to avoid to mix all material, because it's very easy that in this phase, in the very thin thickness, to create only one mask. I want to divide perfectly the effect. And so putting the drop to drop, top to drop, I maintain the humidity, and most of all, I maintain the position. Because don't forget, in micro layer technique, we use very few quantity of the mass, 3, 4, really easy recipe.
Exactly, thank you. Donc, en fait, il utilise par petits incréments dans la technique de microstratification pour pas mélanger bien sûr toutes les masses et puis pour éviter un étalement de la couche qui est le cas dans les cas de techniques conventionnelles traditionnelles. Ici, dans cette technique, il apporte de petits apports pour contrôler exactement toute sa construction. So, another question. À propos, tiens, de facettes en zircone et de son expérience. So, Daniele, do you have any experience with zirconia and veneers, laminates?
Yes, I have some experience. There is some cases where I used and I can propose the zirconia for the laminates, and not only laminates, also the Maryland bridge. The key is the quality of the cementation, or better, adhesive with zirconia, zirconia in combination with interesting panavia, because the key is the MDP, MDP ceramic primer. This kind of molecule guarantee to me a very good adhesion, zirconia and the resin cement and the tooth. So consider this quality of the cementation. I can guarantee also the work with the laminates, using most of all a translucent material like UT, for example, in that case, because I want to exploit the translucency of this kind of material. And so, another aspect, disadvantages. If I have a good project, through the digital workflow, I can reproduce a zero cutback UT multi-layer zirconia and finalize with FC pastain, because FC pastain is not super color, can improve the quality of the aesthetic effect on transparent, translucent zirconia, like UT.
Ok. Donc, en fait, il a déjà utilisé de la zircone pour les facettes et toujours le point clé, c'est l'adhésion et le collage. Et donc, il a confiance totalement dans le MDP par rapport au collage de la zircone. Et puis, il utilise de l'UTLN, qui est la plus translucente selon lui. Et I want to have another question about these zirconia veneers. And do you use them to mask sometimes?
Yes. We have the chance speak about the cementation or speak about the zirconia, because, for example, just in case, well, we know that we have the different opacity of the panavia. For example, for me, it's important to know the color of the base. Normally, I create a dye in resin dye in order to have a copy of the abutment. And when they finalize the work with it for FC pastain, I can test which is the combination is the best color of the panavia, for example, cement, because you know there is a opacity.
Yes.
You know there is a pink, white. This is a very interesting option.
Yeah, and we have this question about the opaque panavia. If you use it to hide inlay core in metal and zirconia, inlay core, you know, post a build up in metal.
Okay.
In chrome.
Yes, this is the delicate phase, because we have to test perfectly the problem, because when we have the post, maybe we have to consider the opacity again. In that case, if we have the post, surely the translucency of zirconia in combination with the thickness could be a problem, because have a gray. Maybe in that case, maybe prefer to use the ST for example,
Oui.
is have more density in combination with opaque Panavia profile.
Donc, par rapport à la question, pour cacher un linécore en métal et rester en zircone translucide, en fait, il utilisera plus la gamme polyvalent, qui est la STML, pour pas avoir totalement cette translucidité par rapport aux linécores. Et également, donc, il réalise un die en résine sur lequel il va tester les différents supports avec la couche de Panavia parce que tout dépend également de l'épaisseur. Donc voilà, pas mal de solutions pour pouvoir masquer en fonction du moignon, mais il faut bien sûr prendre en compte tout ceci en avant et en amont. So another question, Daniele. Donc, quelle texture par rapport au FC pasting doit avoir tout ceci pour le maquillage et comment il l'utilise en mixant avec le S liquide. So, Daniele, when you use the FC pasting, what texture should it be? Do you use it pure or more liquid, or it depends? Do you mix it stay thick or fluid? Yeah, the ceramic fluid. How do you handle it?
So I have some suggestion. The first, we start with the bottle. When you have the bottle, we have a very perfect mixing, and you can find a liquid on surface. It's really important. No mixing. No mix is this kind, because I want to maintain the perfect plasticity and balance of the ingredient of this kind of material can arrive from the company. Because if you mix it together, this kind of compost to become dry. And so I suggest and put in the palette in order to manage the density. Now I can modulate the density, but for me the best condition is a very good density, no liquid, because dissolve this kind of material is in the end is not effective because it disappears in the color.
Ok, donc pas de mélange, il préfère l'utiliser vraiment pur parce que en fait c'est sa manière de travailler la plus optimale. Voilà. Et lorsque vous mélangez, en fait, vous perdez des propriétés. Donc, à utiliser pur le plus possible. Another question. Donc, il y a une French. Concernant la partie du fraisage et de la sintérisation, quelles sont ses habitudes et ses recommandations pour obtenir les meilleurs résultats avec la zircone? So, concerning the part of milling and sintering, what are your habits or recommendations to obtain the best results with katana?
Thank you for the question. This question is really important. Most of all, consider the new zirconia, the fourth generation zirconia, multi-layer and cubic. We have to respect the protocol and temperature. The first is fundamental, the temperature, because there is many factors can influence our zirconia. And for example, the sinterization, the temperature of the sinterization. But enter inside of this sintering, the first problem is to consider the perfect calibration of the oven, the decontamination of the oven, because there is many oxide that can arrive from the old style infiltration or from the color of zirconia. This kind of this oxide can contaminate our product. For this, it's really important to be sure that our furnace is in the ideal condition, most of all the resistance. And I invite, for example, to be careful about the temperature, to check with a special candy, a ceramic candy from France, ferro.
Yeah, the ring.
Yes, this is the ring ceramic. this ring is interesting because we can check perfectly your desktop correspond of your temperature, because all we know 1500 specifically for HT, 100 and 550 ideal for cubic ST and T, but with important data is enough changing the for 50 degree our program, and you obtain maybe more translucency or less translucency. But most of all, for example, is a HTML. You have a wrong temperature. For example, 100 and 1550 HTML, your zirconia changed totally because the crystal of the zirconia changed the dimension, and probably the HTML seen a bit translucency, but missing a lot of the strength. So, okay. To be honest, we have an important lecture regarding this aspect, because to summarize, furnace, temperature, calibration, decontamination, and a perfect program.
Ok. Donc, juste en résumé, cette partie est bien sûr très importante pour obtenir les meilleurs résultats. Et donc, il faut le bon four adéquat, bien réglé, avec également la calibration de ce four, en utilisant éventuellement donc des anneaux de température qui vont donner, apprécier la véritable température, puisqu'en fait la zircone est très sensible. Et puis également donc la décontamination régulière et quelque chose d'autre à la fin. And, how often do you clean your oven, your furnace?
For example, there is a specific product that now I forgot the name, but is a special ceramic film in order to absorb the oxidation. But the more simple system is to use, for example, the white zirconia, like HT10, for example, a whole piece, put in the oven, to practice the standard program that you use. And this program serves to you to create the contamination and also to check the quality of the contamination, because using zirconia white, we can check in the end the color that you obtain, which kind of oxide contaminated your zirconia. And these procedures represent already a decontamination.
Okay, and if it is dark, so it means that it's not good, not good at all.
Dark could be a spot, could be some yellow. Maybe in this moment we can do again. Sometime is the resistance is too contaminated. There is only chance to change the resistance.
Ok. Donc so, en fait, il utilise les chutes.
To check the resistance, because when the resistance is totally brilliant, the work is good. But when this kind of resistance to be started to become a little opaque, probably the damage is very big.
Ok, thank you. Donc en fait, il utilise donc les chutes de zircone blanches qui peuvent être de la HTML très opaque. Il lance le four qui va ensuite absorber les impuretés. Et en fonction de la couleur, de comment elle ressort, eh bien, il y aura, ça peut être des spots, ça peut être plus ou moins bruni, ça peut être noir. En fonction de tout ceci, il avisera, mais en tout cas, il regarde la résistance du four, si elle est parfaitement propre, ou donc brillante, ou bien opaque. Thank you. Another question. À propos, alors sur un autre sujet, donc à propos de la cuisson de connexion ou la connexion entre l'armature et donc la céramique, est-ce que la procédure est la même que pour une armature et un cutback? So Daniele, for the connection firing and the connection between the frame and the ceramic, for you, the procedure, is it the same for the frame and cutback? How do you manage the connection layer?
No, for example, we can divide a standard treatment of the substrate. When the idea to multi-layer with the porcelain directly and using zirconia as a frame, in that case, my favorite system is USDS, shade stain. This is an interesting material because it can balance perfectly the tone of the shade. It's a fluorescence material and prepare a very good substrate to receive the layer. But in that case, I use the porcelain to reproduce totally the color. Just in case I use the cutback and the portion is only vestibulary, I use 0.8. It's not necessary for me to use the SBS, but for example, I use an internalized stain. And this kind of film of the internalized stain help to me to manage the color and to create the first link condition of ceramic in ceramic, because in internal stain there is also a portion of ceramic. Pay attention, the temperature in that case of the internal stain, it will be more high, 900 for 1 minute without vacuum.
Ok, thank you. Eh bien, beaucoup de choses. Donc, en fait, dans les cas de microstratification, il utilise le produit SBS, le liant, pour faire la connexion. Par contre, dans les cas de cutback juste vestibulaire, il ne l'utilise pas et il laisse les lusters, tout simplement. Et donc, tout dépend en fait de sa situation. Nous allons bientôt terminer cette séance de questions. How do you handle, donc comment gère-t-on l'état de surface en microstratification? So how do you handle the texture on the surface in micro layering? Do you
in micro layer technique with the ceramic?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
exactly. I think it was, maybe it's too general question.
Yes. I use the same procedure that I use normally in ceramic layer. Refinishing with the burn, the diamond burn for the component. The first step is the stone to create the macro morphology, the contour. And then to be careful of detail, I use the diamond burn. But step fundamental, it will be the master cone in order to recreate the soft surface and perfect polishing. And to finish, for ceramic micro layer, never I use the glazour material, but I put directly in the oven without vacuum in order to create a brilliant effect on surface. A little bake without vacuum. It's a self-glaze procedure.
Right.
But palatally,
yeah,
nothing. Only diamond paste zeta pearl with a got brush mécanique.
Ok, thank you. Donc, comme il l'a montré dans sa présentation, pour utiliser, il utilise vraiment le Meister Cone pour gérer sa surface avant sintérisation. Et en palatin, donc rien du tout. En vestibulaire, c'est toujours la self-glaze et la cuisson. I think maybe last question. Yes.
Ouais.
Donc, y a-t-il un programme de stabilisation de la zircone après sintérisation? So, do you have a stabilizing program of zirconia after sintering? Do you do something special or do you just follow the process recommended?
No, I respect the procedure for the Noritake, Kurai Noritake. no need any program to stabilize. This program could be a damage today with the new generation of zirconia. This kind of stabilization is all system, all technique when we use the second generation, the first generation of zirconia. But today, consider the new quality of the katana zirconia don't need anything for the extra program, because normally this extra program is a 200 degree. Now is enough to be careful regarding the perfect sintering. And my personal suggestion is to avoid to use the infiltration, because we can contaminate the normally color can contaminate your oven, and to be careful that the quality of your resistance and program and temperature. But the zirconia katana don't need any program before.
Ok, thank you. Donc, pour la stabilisation de cette zircone, il suit strictement le protocole de Noritake et il n'ajoute pas d'infiltrant ou de choses comme ça. Peut-être que c'était comme ça à l'époque précédente, mais aujourd'hui, avec cette nouvelle génération, il applique les procédures à la lettre et il n'a aucun souci avec. So, nous allons conclure cette session. Eh bien, merci tout le monde pour avoir participé à cette session. Et donc, du coup, nous nous retrouvons très vite avec tous les collègues en terrain. Et je voulais remercier vraiment l'ensemble de l'équipe de Curare pour son travail, ainsi que Daniele Rondoni, bien sûr. So, thank you, Daniele Rondoni. Yeah, now I will call you later. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for attention. Thank you very much, Victorien, for the support me in this webinar. And I hope to meet you soon. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Yes, bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.